Okay, these are the notes on 7-3. And we did these in class, but this is a video for you to go back. There's a lot of information on this, but basically what we're talking about is, if you remember when we did the Desmos polygraph activity in the beginning of this unit, right there you are already identifying the difference between sets of lines, and lines have different characteristics. You've learned the names of some of those as we've worked, such as slope and intercepts, and all of them have a table of values that is unique and a graph that is unique. So the first thing I have is transform the equation so that y is given in terms of x. And this is actually using a skill we did in the chapter 3 and 4 unit, solving literal equations. So you can see we're making a connection and bringing back material we learned before. So what that means is you're given the equation I have here, and transform the equation so that y is given in terms of x means get the y by itself, using that same idea we did from the chapter 3 and 4. So I did an example here in red. I subtracted 5x from both sides, and then I divided both sides by 2. So my answer is right here, y equals negative 5/2 x plus 5. All right, so what I'm going to do is ask you to push pause. Before you push pause, I want you to do these two problems, and your job is to get y alone. Transform the equation so y is given in terms of x. You should end up with y equals and everything else on the other side of the equation. So please push pause now and work on that. I have the answers here. In the one on the top right, I subtracted 3x from both sides, and then I divided everything by -1 so that the y would be alone. Over here, I started by subtracting 8x from both sides, and then I divided everything by -2, and that's how I transformed it. All right, in the next problem, what you start with, I'm trying to figure out where I can put this to be helpful, is given this equation, you're gonna make a table and a graph. So what you're gonna see is you're gonna put x and y at the top, and you can pick any numbers you want to go here. I wouldn't pick them to be too high though. So I'm gonna say x, I just picked 0, 1, 2, and 3. You may have picked different numbers, and that's okay. Pick any 4 numbers you want. So what we're trying to figure out is, remember, equations are keeping things balanced. So if x is 0, what does y need to be in order to keep the equation balanced, in order to keep them equal? So you see how to get y, it says take 2, multiply it by the x number, and subtract 1. So I took 2, I replaced x with 0, or substituted 0 in for x, and subtracted 1. And then I evaluated. So there's that order of operations from a previous unit. Then I did the same thing, but then this time I substituted 1 in for x, because that's 1. I substituted 2 in for x, and then 3 in for x, and I got the corresponding y values. And now you have a list of points. I have the point 0, -1, and I plotted that right here. I have the point 1, 1, plotted that here, the point 2, 3, and the point 3, 5. So I plotted all those points and then connected them. Make sure to put arrows on the end to show that this line goes on forever. Because remember, we could fill this table of values. We didn't even go into the negatives or fractions or anything like that. There's a whole infinite numbers we could do here. And this line represents all of those numbers. And then to bring in the ideas that we were already working on, what is the slope of this line? Now there are 2 ways to do the slope, 3 ways really to do the slope of the line. Some of you were using the counting method we learned in a previous video, where from one point to another, this is an increase of 2 and an increase of 1. So rise over run means up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. So the slope is 2. The rise is 2 over 1. If you went between 2 other points, it's the same idea. I rise 4, I run 2. 4 over 2 is also 2. So it doesn't matter which points you pick. Another method, a popular one I saw in class that people were doing, was finding the difference. There are 4 points listed here. You can pick any 2 points you want from this table, and you're going to find the change in the y's over the change in the x's. So I just chose the first 2. So I did -1, -1. And then from the x's, the corresponding x change was 0 minus 1. That gave me negative 2 over negative 1, which simplifies to be positive 2. So the counting says the slope is 2, and this says the slope is 2. And then to find the x and y intercept, to x-intercept, I took the equation, I plugged in 0 for x, we learned y in a previous video, why we do that, and I solved. And for the y-intercept, we plugged in 0 for x, and we solved. So we found 3 numbers here. We found the slope was 2, the x-intercept was a half, and the y-intercept was a negative 1. So 2, 1/2, and negative 1 were 3 numbers that we found. Those all have names. Now look back at your original equation. Do you see some of those numbers in the original equation? Okay, so just think about that. Look for some connections, maybe some patterns you're going to see. Now, down in the next problem, I'm going to have you do that. What I'd like you to do first is take this equation and get the y alone. Remember, that means transform the equation so that y is given in terms of x. Okay, so you're going to get the y alone. Then you're going to pick 4 numbers for the x, whatever you want. You're going to solve, and then you're going to graph it. Okay, and then I would like you to try and find the slope and the intercept. So practice is a whole bunch of things all at once. So please push pause now. Again, you have probably 5 things. Put this y in terms of x. Pick an x. This will be x. Pick 4 numbers for y, for x, and solve for y. Plot your points. They should be in a line. And then find the slope and the intercept. So please push pause now and try that. All right, I have your answers here. In blue is my transformation of getting the y alone. I picked 4 numbers for x. Now look at what you're doing, because I used the blue one. When I look back at the blue one, I knew that I was going to have to multiply this x number, whatever my x number is, by 2/3. So personally, I like to pick numbers that are easy to find a third of, because I'm going to find 2/3. So that's why I didn't go 0, 1, 2, 3 here. You're going to get fraction values for your y, which are a little hard to figure out on the graph. You can estimate them. So I picked 3, 6, and -3 because all of those numbers are easily divisible by 3. That's why I chose those. You may have picked different numbers. Again, you can see I substituted x into this blue part to figure out y. I plotted my points 0, 2, 3, 0, 6, -2, and -3, 4. To find the slope, again, you could use your graph. So what this would be is down 2, a -2, and then a +3 movement. So my rise is -2, my run is +3, so my slope is -2/3. If you looked at it the opposite way, you might say, well, I rose +2, but then when you went left, -3. And remember when we did our slope that we saw what a decreasing line or negative slope looks like. Again, you could have done it algebraically. I didn't show my work for x-intercept and y-intercept. From what I gathered in class today, that seemed to be going pretty well, where you can plug in 0 for x and solve for y. That'll give you your y-intercept. Plug in 0 for y, solve for x. That gives you your x-intercept. Now, just again, our slope was -2/3. Our y-intercept was 3, or I'm sorry, our x-intercept was 3, and our y-intercept was 2. So look at these 3 numbers we found and look back at this equation. Do you see some of those numbers appearing again? Okay, stay tuned. All right, then I have 2 more problems, and I want you to do exactly what we just did before. This one's already y in terms of x, so I saved you a job there. Make a table, make a graph, find the slope and the x and y intercept. So if you want to push pause now, you can do that for this problem. And then you're going to come back and we're going to get y in terms of x. So get the y alone, make your table, make your graph, find the slope and the intercepts. So pause now. And again, you can rewind if I went too fast and go see whatever you need. So push pause now. And here's the solution to the first one. Again, you'll see here I chose numbers that were easily divisible by 5. It just made my calculating a little easy and made sure guaranteed I'd have whole numbers over here. If you didn't do that, that's okay. It makes it a little difficult to estimate on here, but it should be okay. So those are my values I picked. I plotted the points. I found the slope. I showed you the algebraic way to get it here, or you could also count up 3/5 or up 6/10. X-intercept I have here, and the y-intercept I didn't show my work because, again, they seem to go pretty well in class. Again, look at the slope, look at the x-intercept, look at the y-intercept, look at those numbers, and look back up here. See if you might start to make a connection. Down below, I have everything again. I showed all my work. In blue, I'm transforming y in terms of x. In red, I'm showing the numbers. I picked 0, 1, 2, 3 this time because I'm just multiplying by 2, so it's pretty easy to multiply anything by 2. I plotted my points, and that blue line should be going through. It's a little difficult for me to do that on a computer, but we'll give it a try. That looks a little better. I found the slope, and my work is there. And again, you can just use 2 points. I used the first 2 points, but you could have used any. And I found the x-intercept and y-intercept. And my last recommendation is, again, look at the slope, look at the x-intercept, look at the y-intercept, look at this equation, and see if you can make a connection between what numbers seem to keep appearing all the time. And we're going to go somewhere with that tomorrow. Okay, that is the conclusion of the 7-3 notes. I hope that's helpful to you, and the homework is online.